won't pretend to be up here and defend Bryson. I'm not particularly fond of him.
Rory McIlroy stood in front of reporters at Royal Birkdale on Saturday and delivered 11 words that traveled around the golf world within minutes. I won't pretend to be up here and defend Bryson. I'm not particularly fond of him. The four-time major winner was not talking about a bad shot or a missed putt. He was talking about a night in which Bryson DeChambeau argued with rules officials, was driven back onto the golf course to reenact a swing, reportedly called those officials crooks, threatened to withdraw from the championship, and, according to reporting, mentioned the name of the President of the United States. To understand why that night mattered so much, you have to understand where Bryson DeChambeau stood before it happened. He arrived at the 154th Open Championship having missed the cut at the first three major championships of 2026. He had not posted a single round under par in a major all season. He was widely expected to miss the cut again at Royal Birkdale. Instead, he shot a second round of 66. That put him at 7 under par in solo second place, one stroke behind the surprise leader, the Australian Lucas Herbert. Not one player ahead of him on that leaderboard had ever won a major championship. DeChambeau had won 2, both at the United States Open. For a player who had spent the entire year being written off, this was the position he had been chasing since January. He walked off the 18th green after a birdie believing he was one shot off the lead. Rules officials were waiting for him. The incident had happened hours earlier on the 5th hole. DeChambeau missed the fairway well to the right and his ball settled in thick fescue grass. He walked into the native area and took several high steps as he assessed his second shot. Television replays appeared to show the tall grass behind the ball lying down as a result of those steps. He played on, made a bogey 5, and finished his round with no indication that anything was wrong. This is where almost every public argument about the incident went off course because nearly everyone debated the wrong question. The question people asked was whether Bryson DeChambeau meant to do it. Under the rules of golf, that question is not relevant. Rule 8. 1A restricts what a player may do to improve the conditions affecting a stroke, and that includes the area of the player's intended swing. The Royal and Ancients Executive Director of Governance, Grant Moir, addressed this directly in a statement to the media. He said the rule applies even when the action is accidental, as it was in Bryson's case. Read that carefully. The governing body publicly accepted that DeChambeau did not do it on purpose and applied the penalty anyway. Moir also explained the part of the rule that received far less attention. A player, he said, must take the least intrusive course of action to deal with a particular situation and is not entitled to a normal stance or swing. In other words, being in thick rough is supposed to be difficult. A player does not have a right to a comfortable setup, and the effort to create one is precisely what the rule guards against. Intent was never the issue. That single misunderstanding fueled almost the entire public argument that followed. What happened over the next several hours turned a rules decision into the dominant story of the championship. DeChambeau did not accept the official's explanation in the scoring area. He insisted on returning to the scene and was driven by cart back out to the 5th hole alongside the Royal and Ancients head of governance and a senior referee. Once there, he reenacted his swing and argued his case at length. Television cameras captured an animated player pleading with officials in the middle of a golf course. According to reports, he called the officials crooks. He returned to the scoring area, and the governing body did not move. At that point, the chief executive of the Royal and Ancient, Mark Darbon, joined the conversation. It was during that exchange, according to reporting first published by the Quadrilateral and subsequently by The Guardian, that DeChambeau indicated he would telephone President Donald Trump if the matter was not resolved in his favor. This detail needs a clear qualifier. There is no evidence that any such call took place. The Royal and Ancient has not commented on it. Darbon was later asked directly by the British Broadcasting Corporation whether he had heard from the president, and he answered plainly, "No, I have not received a call from President Trump, and we will see what happens from here." The penalty was applied. His score on the 5th hole changed from a bogey 5 to a triple bogey 7. His round of 66 became a 68. His total went from 7 under to 5 under. He dropped from second place into a tie for fifth, 3 strokes behind Lucas Herbert. Then came the threat to withdraw. Golf Channel reporter Todd Lewis spoke to DeChambeau's agent Brett Falkoff and reported live that the player remained undecided about whether he would even appear for the third round and that a decision would come Saturday morning. That report is what set the entire American golf media alight because the leaderboard was still wide open and the tee times had not yet been published. And through all of this, Bryson DeChambeau was on the driving range in complete darkness. It was 20 minutes past 10 at night. The only light came from a video board 30 yards to one side and a thin orange moon. 7 members of his team stood around him. Roughly a dozen reporters were camped behind him. 4 fans had snuck into the grandstands to watch. A single security guard looked confused by the entire scene. He was reportedly humming, singing, and handing out snacks between shots. He declined to speak to reporters, as he had also done at the Professional Golfers Association Championship and the United States Open earlier in the season. His agent spoke for him and said one line that summarized the camp's position. He's a lot of things. He's not a cheater. Shortly after midnight, DeChambeau posted on X, obviously disappointed with the ruling. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. This fires me up. On to the weekend. Let's get it. He also posted a slideshow on Instagram containing doctored photographs showing him levitating above the Birkdale rough. Somewhere between the cart ride back to the 5th hole and the levitation photographs, this stopped being a rules dispute. The Royal and Ancient never wavered. Speaking to British Broadcasting Corporation Radio 5 LIV on Saturday morning, Mark Darbon described the decision as really clear-cut from a rules perspective. He explained the process behind it, saying the team discusses these situations but the final decision sits with the chief referee, and that the organization has a responsibility to the championship and to the rest of the field. His key line was that the outcome would have been identical no matter who was involved. Darbon also acknowledged the human side. He said there had been emotion around the discussion, that he empathized with it, and that some aspects of the conversation would remain private. He would not confirm whether DeChambeau had threatened to pull out. Asked whether the late-night social media posts amounted to bringing the game into disrepute, he declined to speculate about what the player was trying to communicate, saying it was not his place to comment. 2 pieces of context matter here. First, DeChambeau was not the only player disciplined that week. Jon Rahm received a warning from the Royal and Ancient during the 2nd round for throwing a club hard at a tee box, an act judged to be poor sportsmanship. The governing body was policing conduct across the field, not targeting one man. Second, there was a recent precedent that critics reached for immediately. At the previous year's Open Championship at Royal Portrush, Shane Lowry accepted a 2-stroke penalty after his ball moved during a practice swing on the 12th hole. He did not dispute it, and the reason he gave was that he did not want to be labeled a cheat. Inside the locker room, opinions split along a clear spectrum. Defending him was Max Homa, who did not agree with the ruling at all. All I know is I've known Bryson for a very long time, and he's an interesting human at times, but I know he would never cheat the game of golf. Homa said he saw only one camera angle, did not believe there was intent, and was concerned about the narrative the penalty would create around a player's character. Xander Schauffele offered a technical defense. He said DeChambeau was just stepping in how you'd normally step in to hit a golf shot, and pointed out that being in high brush forces players to move awkwardly around the ball in ways they rarely practice. Jon Rahm and the Sky Sports analyst Paul McGinley both predicted the penalty would motivate him, with McGinley saying playing with a chip on your shoulder can be a good thing. In the middle sat Russell Henley, who made what may be the sharpest observation of the entire episode. He accepted that everyone should be held to identical standards, then identified the practical problem. The issue with that to me is the fact that he's on TV every shot. Henley noted that if he had played the same hole in the same way, no camera would have been on him and no penalty would have followed. Writing for Golf.com, Michael Bamberger answered that argument with a line borrowed from a high school teacher. You are responsible for what you know. Uneven enforcement is a genuine problem, but the logical response is more scrutiny, not less. Against him stood the loudest voices in the sport, and the loudest of all was Rory McIlroy. McIlroy had watched the incident unfold live on television in the players' lounge with several other golfers. His description of that moment was immediate and unanimous. As soon as he made the step into the ball, we all sort of looked at each other and we were like, that didn't seem right. When he heard rules officials had called DeChambeau in, he said the reason was obvious. On the ruling itself, McIlroy was unequivocal. Yeah, I think there's no doubt that he improved the line of his backswing. He added that whether the act was careless or intentional did not matter to him and concluded, I think the two-shot penalty was justified for sure. Then came the personal section that made global headlines. I think a lot of it's performative. I think a lot of it's for attention. He continued to hold the tournament hostage like that and to have all of us, volunteers, players, everyone waiting on him to depart. I didn't feel like it was a great look. Asked whether he believed DeChambeau knew what he was doing, McIlroy answered, I'm not in his mind. I'm not in his. But it didn't look good. There was one specific grievance buried inside those comments that most coverage overlooked, because DeChambeau took so long to argue his case before signing a scorecard. The Royal and Ancient was delayed in releasing the tee times for Saturday's third round. Every player in the field was affected. Three-time Open champion Nick Faldo accused him of losing the plot and of wanting to be the center of attention, having already argued earlier in the week that DeChambeau had zero clue of strategy on a links course. Faldo's broader point reached past the incident entirely. No player is bigger than the game. He listed Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Tiger Woods and observed that each has stepped back and golf has continued regardless. Brandel Chamblee on Golf Channel was blunt. This was such a clear violation, he said, arguing that a player should look at the evidence except that a rule was broken and ask what the penalty is. He called the reaction childish and immature and raised a practical consequence nobody else mentioned. If tee times had already been set and DeChambeau then withdrew, another player with a genuine chance to win a major championship would have been sent out alone. Chamblee had also criticized him before the tournament began, saying he had gone from chasing Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy to chasing the YouTube creator Grant Horvat. The most complete argument came from broadcaster Trey Wingo, and it turned on a comparison to Rory McIlroy himself. Speaking on his Straight Facts Homie podcast, Wingo described hearing the agent's statement. I heard his agent say, I'm not 100% sure he's going to play tomorrow. I'm like, are you kidding me? Respectfully, are you kidding me? His argument was built entirely on the leaderboard. There is nobody in front of you, even with that two-stroke penalty, who has won a major championship, and you're only 4 strokes off the lead. Wingo also pointed to what happened on Saturday, describing wild gestures on the golf course and a request made after the round. DeChambeau went to Mark Darbon's office and asked for his second-round scorecard back. The request was politely declined. According to Wingo's account of the response, officials told him, that's not how this works. We're not surrendering that to you so you can make some content out of it. Then came the comparison. At the 2025 Masters Tournament, Rory McIlroy missed a sharp putt on the 72nd hole that would have completed the career Grand Slam. His caddy and closest friend Harry Diamond said one sentence to him, we would have signed up for this on Monday. McIlroy reset, went to a playoff, and won. Wingo wished someone had DLI. Veered the identical message at Royal Birkdale, reminding DeChambeau that he had historically played poorly at Open Championships until his final 3 rounds at Royal Portrush the previous year, that he was playing excellent golf, and asking whether he would have signed up for this position on Monday. The difference between the two moments was not talent or mental toughness. It was whether the people around a player are there to reset him or to agree with him. Wingo argued the pattern was not new, recalling DeChambeau's dispute over relief from anthills and a lengthy argument at the Memorial Tournament when 2 rules officials ruled his ball out of bounds against a homeowner's fence. His conclusion was that DeChambeau struggles when told something contrary to what he believes is correct, and that this tendency appeared in his phrasing on steroids on Friday evening. The counter-argument deserves equal weight, and it arrived quickly. Fans resurfaced footage of Rory McIlroy walking over to a spectator who was recording him, taking the phone, walking away, and later returning it. The charge was that the most outspoken man in golf, who comments freely on LIV golf, on fellow players, and on the direction of the sport, does not always display the composure he demands from others. The defense is that criticizing a rival's public persona and reacting to an intrusive fan during competition are not comparable situations. Michael Bamberger offered the most honest steelman of DeChambeau's position. Watching the video, he wrote that he saw a large and irritated man stomping around, possibly losing his balance for half a second, and that had he been watching in real time, no alarms would have gone off. He deferred to the Royal and Ancient's judgment, but conceded what his own eye had seen. Bamberger then asked the harder question whether the same penalty would have been applied to Rory McIlroy or to local favorite Tommy Fleetwood, both beloved figures who represent the traditional values the governing body holds dear. His answer was no, and his broader point was that the rules of golf attempt to make every situation binary, while real life with real people never is. His colleague Jessica Marksberry added that intense analysis of the milliseconds before a shot, when viewers at home cannot reasonably tell what happened, may be a disservice all around. Two things can be true at once. The ruling was correct, and the enforcement environment is distributed unevenly according to how much camera time a player receives. Wingo's structural reading explains why this collision was probably inevitable. DeChambeau is LIV Golf's biggest star, even though Jon Rahm may be the more consistent and better player, and he is positioned as an invested business partner rather than an employee. The practical message he receives in Wingo's framing is to do whatever he wants. On his YouTube channel, DeChambeau himself is in charge of every decision. He has suggested publicly that the channel's growth matters as much as his tournament results. So the confrontation at Royal Birkdale was never really one player against one rules official. It was an entertainment operation in which he is the final authority running into a 154-year-old championship in which he is not. As Wingo put it, it got performative, because he's a performer. His closing instruction was direct. Figure out what's ahead of you, not what's behind you. Faldo's counterweight sat alongside it. Once a player is finished, golf goes on. Here is how it actually ended, which most coverage skipped entirely. DeChambeau shot a third-round 69, identical to McIlroy's score, leaving him 4 strokes behind leader Sam Burns. The crowd reaction was overwhelmingly positive. He high-fived a line of spectators, posed for a selfie with a child, and stopped to fist-bump a fan on his way from the range. Shouts of support followed him to the first tee, and the galleries cheered when the starter introduced him. The crowd also leaned into the joke. Every practice swing drew an extended ooh-ooh. At the par 4 6th hole, he addressed his second shot with an exaggerated wide stance similar to the one from Friday and drew laughter. Occasional calls of watch your step, Bryson came from the deep galleries. He finished tied for 14th, his best major championship result of 2026, with a bogey at the 18th spoiling a strong closing stretch. He remained in the United Kingdom to play the LIV golf event at the JCB Golf and Country Club, where he opened with a 64. He later stated he believed he would have been right there for the claret jug without the penalty. The one thing that never came was an apology or a walkback of any kind. As one analyst put it, that silence is itself the clearest available answer to whether Bryson DeChambeau believes he did anything wrong. So the question is yours. Was this an injustice handled badly, or a performance that finally found its stage? And if your caddy had 30 seconds with you immediately after that ruling, what does he say?